Are we live? Hello. Hi, everybody. Make sure you can hear me. Hi, Lauren, Karen, Jerry, Greg. If you guys got audio, we've been having some serious problems. I think it's due to Catalina. Anybody else update to Catalina? Okay, I'm looking down here. Okay, if you're not watching it yet, hit reconnect at the top and it will start going for you. Karen Floyd, hello. Karen, can you hear me? Scott, nice to see you. I'm just trying to get all this. If you guys wouldn't believe, we've been here 2 hours trying to make this work. And it's all because I updated to Catalina. And anyway, okay, Pat says we got audio. We got audio, Daniel. Okay, Daniel's running the machine over there. So I'm going to be shooting with Carrie, who's our model today. And we're doing a one light headshot. Hi, Laura from Ohio. Nice to see you. Joseph, loud and clear. Mildred from New York City. I'm excited you guys are here. And so why are we doing this? We're doing this because today I photographed a job this morning at 7 o'clock this morning where I photographed 35 people in a company that does, they do promotional products. So that's right, they'll print your logo on a t-shirt or on a mug or on a thumb drive or anything you want like that. But here's the thing, when I got there, they have a 6,000 square foot warehouse full of stuff and plenty of space, but they wanted me to shoot in a 10 by 10 room, 35 people. And so very often is the case where, and I know that there's some of you guys going to bounce back. They're going to go, well, you need to demand this and demand that. When they're paying you thousands of dollars to show up and take pictures of their faces, you're kind of just going to do what they say. And so you don't really demand anything. You sort of suggest, and they give you what you get. And so in many cases like this, it is my job to create the best possible headshot I can for a lot of people in a very small space. And so obviously, if I would love to have 30-foot ceilings and 800 square feet every time I go out to somebody's office, but it's very often the case where they'll say even something like, oh, well, we have a boardroom that's 40 feet by 15 feet, but then 38 by 12 feet of that is a table and that you can't move because it's made of oak that was like chopped down by blind Peruvian monks and whittled into a table custom made for their boardroom. And so you have to shoot around that. And so what I'm going to do is to show you the equipment that I use and some of the techniques that I use to get a headshot with one light. We won't have like a multi-camera shoot. That's the view you guys are going to have, but you're also going to have my desktop to be able to see what I'm doing at the same time. So I went ahead and I used my very favorite tool. Where'd it go? My two very favorite tools. Where's my light meter, Daniel? Can you go get it? It's hard to find good help, you know. I literally set it right there, and he was just being a good assistant and putting it away properly. All right, so I went ahead and I positioned Carrie where I wanted her to go, and I metered the light. This is what I always use to make sure that I'm getting an accurate reading, and then I did a custom white balance. Daniel, would you go ahead and share that Capture One desktop? There's the desktop. You'll be able to see what I got. So looking at what I've got already, that's my color check. You can see that I've got nice light on her, but I'm also got a little bit of too much depth in the shadows. It's a little bit too dark. So that's where I'm going to start to bring in some reflection. But before we do that, let's go over equipment. I've got my Canon 5D Mark III because we couldn't get the audio to come out of it. So we're filming with the Mark IV and we're shooting with the Mark III. And I've got my Godox lighting. I've got my 8200 and my Godox trigger here. My Manfrotto tripod, and then I've got this little guy here because for those of you who keep up, I switched recently to Capture One from Lightroom, and one of the cool things that it has is it has what's called Capture Pilot, so you can actually preview all the images on an iPad while tethered to another machine, which is pretty cool. So I'm going to be able to view my images big and beautiful right here using Capture Pilot, while Daniel is going to be getting the images on the desktop over here. And this is a random iPad stand that I got at off of Amazon for like 60 bucks. So there you go. Hope that works. All right. Seshu asked, would you use the same light setup regardless of face shape? In a perfect world, I would not. And if I was shooting individual people, I would probably tailor the light specifically to the shape of their face, to the aberrations, to the asymmetry or symmetry of them. I would do whatever I could to flatter them. But if you're shooting volume, which is a lot of what I do, you can't necessarily change the lighting a lot because everybody's picture has to look the same. So I pick a lighting setup in a direction that works most of the time for most people, and pretty much you still get about 90–95% of people are thrilled with it. Every once in a while, if somebody's got something really tough that you need to work around, I will move the light a little bit, but most of the time you don't have time and you can't really do it because the headshots need to match. So I shoot with a little bit of direction to the light, fairly close to flat, like a 1 to 1.5 ratio. And that will give us the ability to change that ratio a little bit, moving the reflector without having to change the power of the light. So if somebody's got a more round face, I can slim that out with shadows. If somebody's got a slender face, and I can broad light them a little more by bringing a reflector in closer to the other side of the face. I hope that. Jerry, I have an equipment list. Daniel, will you look that up? I've got my whole go bag list on my website that Daniel's going to go get, and he's going to post a link into the conversation right now. Those are Adorama affiliate links. So if you click on those and you buy something, I'll probably get like a nickel. So that's awesome. Anyway, all right, let's get going and see if this focuses on me. All right, Carrie, thank you for your patience. Let's take a couple of test shots. Daniel, let's share that Capture One screen. And so what I'll typically do is with this is the Glow 38-inch Easy Lock, which is really cool. These are about like $100. And they're double baffled, and they've got like a beauty dish, like diffusing plate in the middle. So it gives you really soft, really nice light, even at close distances. And it folds up super, super easy, not too much more different than an umbrella. So what I'll typically do is I'll have this shooting from the left. I almost always have my light on the left, when I'm camera left when I'm shooting volume, because I just find that most people seem to like images better with the lights coming from the left side of the screen. I think in sort of Western culture, it has to do with how we read and how we look at things, and we move from left to right. I couldn't tell you why, but most people seem to like it better, and I light from the left probably about 80% of the time, even in my studio, because unless their face or their facial features warrant doing otherwise. So rather than putting the light at a 45-45, which would be sort of conventional wisdom, 45 degrees up and 45 degrees off the point of the nose, because I'm working in close quarters, when the light hits a subject and it's going directly at them, if it's really close, the fall off is incredibly dramatic. And so not only will I get an incredibly hot anatomical right side of the face, but I'll get incredibly deep shadows and fall off, and there'd just be too big of a difference. So when I shoot with one light, especially when I'm in close quarters, which is really what this is, I will feather the light sort of a little bit off the center. So instead of pointing at the person, let's take a picture and see if we can, Daniel, if you could share the Capture One desktop. It's hard to take a bad picture of Carrie, to be honest with you, but we're going to try. We're going to try to take a bad picture. Okay. If you look at the right side of her face, the stop difference between the light on her left side of her nose and her right, there's like a full stop difference. And I really like to flatten that light out so it's a little more flattering, so you don't get so much hot spot on the forehead and on the cheeks. So I will feather the light across and then bounce it back with a reflector. So rather than shoot it directly at, I will turn it away and feather it across so that the light that's coming off the edge will go across a little more evenly on the person. And you might have to make an adjustment in your power settings because of that, but we will get a slightly nicer, more even light on the person's face. There we go. Okay. Daniel, if you hold the Command key on the keyboard and select those last two images, you can actually pull them up side by side, and I think that might be helpful. So you can see that the light will spread a lot more evenly. There's not such a hot spot on the one side of the face. And so when you're working in close, inches matter. Every inch matters. So rather than point that straight at the side of their face at a 45-degree angle, I recommend feathering the light across so it skips a little more evenly and doesn't give you such a hot spot on the one side. Sound good? All right. Okay, cool. So now what I've got is I've got really good even distribution of the light across the mask of the face. The mask of the face is basically the scalp to the chin, to the cheekbones, and inside. And so that's really what we're lighting for, is going to be the mask of the face. And so if you look at the image on the left, you're going to see that it's really hot on one side and falls off dramatically on the other. If you look at the one where I feathered it a little bit, you see that the light's a lot more even on her. And Edmund says, thanks, Daniel. Nice job. I don't think he meant it sarcastically. When I said it, it sounded sarcastic. Okay, cool. All right, so now that I've got a nice even light, what I want is the light on the mask of the face to be completely even on the person. And so instead of hot here and darker here. And now what I'll do is I'm going to add in some fill light to sort of make that a little more even and fill in those shadows a little bit. And what you'll also see is that we have lost a little bit of the illumination on the background by feathering that light. And that's pretty normal. We should get some of that back when we add those reflectors in. And so I got a couple of different types of reflectors we're going to work with. This is a glow arc light reflector. This is actually out of production, but it's sort of a kind of a copy of the Westcott eye lighter. And this is a really useful, really good reflector for shooting volume and just making everybody look really good. It can pick up great highlights in the eyes. If you use the silver cover for that, it typically makes people look like a nightmare. So I use the white panel reflector on the bottom. It fills in really nicely and gives a subtle lift of color to the eyes. So let's see what that looks like. All right. And Carrie, you're doing a great job. You're way more talented than just being a mannequin. But unfortunately, at this moment, you're just going to have to be a mannequin. All right. And a couple more. All right, Daniel, would you pull that one up side by side with those other two? Share the screen, that last one. You got it? Okay, there you go. And now if you look at the screen, you're going to see that the shadow side is filled in really, really nicely. And giving you a lot closer to an even lighting ratio. It's really almost like a 2 to 1, 1.5 to 1. Jerry asked, would the color of her blouse change your setup at all? Yes and no. Again, if you're doing your job, like the team I photographed today, they wanted a black background, and so I knew I was prepping them for a black background. So I asked them to choose dark, rich colors rather than super bright, light, and I sent them some examples of tonality. You can only prepare people so much when you're working volume. Somebody's going to show up in a chevron pattern, you know, Garfield the cat t-shirt that they got while they were on vacation in Germany. And I can't tell you why that shirt is what it is, but people are just going to show up out of form. Now, I will 100% when I'm shooting in the studio build an entire set, background included, around the wardrobe choices. But hopefully, if you're doing your job in the discovery process, your clients are going to have a really good idea of what you're going to be shooting, and you've communicated with them leading up to the shoot and given them some samples, what colors work best. And usually when you work with someone too, like Carrie, she's going to be experienced in entertainment. She knows what colors look good on her. And so that's all part of the discovery process. And then I know what backgrounds to use and what lighting to use. But my setup doesn't change in volume depending on what they wear. It can't. But with individuals, absolutely, I love to build a color palette out of what they're wearing. Okay, so, all right, now what I also might do is I'm going to show you a second reflector because that arc light is really cool. The Westcott eyelighters, super, super expensive though. This is a Sweet Light 3x4, and this is also a very expensive reflector, but it is, it is got a really good inexpensive version that's almost identical made by Glow from Adorama. And so you'll see that it is a reflector panel. You can get silver, white, black, or gold, and it uses these bars to sort of support it on the side. It's super easy to put together. And unlike the arc light or the Westcott eyelighter, this thing breaks down and sets up so stinking fast, and it rolls up really, really, really small. I take the metal rods, I roll them up on the fabric, turned inside out, and it's like this big and this wide, and it just goes into a bag, and it turns into a gigantic reflector, which is an awesome, awesome thing. So more often than not, I take this on location, and the arc light stays in my studio. If I've got a shoot where I know I'm going to be shooting 8-10 hours, because I do like the light a little better, is more pleasing off of this thing, then I'll go through the trouble of breaking that down and setting it up, because it is a good 5 to 10 minute breakdown setup on that thing. It is not super pleasant. And if you have a very large vehicle like a school bus or a Zeppelin, you could probably just throw it in there and not have to break it down and set it up. So what I might do is bring something like this and even add a little more fill on the side. And then I'll show you what it looks like just using that in a second. And before we do that, Daniel, now comes the sales pitch. I've also got something really cool that I just finished. I just added this to my store. This is my 5x5 trifold that I got right here. Boom. This is a really cool marketing piece that we give to businesses. And it's got, it's all designed. It's a PSD file, layered file, so you can just drop your images in. And in addition, I wrote all of the copy on this myself. I worked really, really hard on it. And I wrote the copy myself rather than hiring a copywriter so that when I sell a template this, you can actually use the copy in it. It is not lip-some text. It is not dummy text. You can straight up rip off this copy, and you can get this in my store right now and get it printed through whatever lab I use, White House Custom Color. But it's a really cool design, and it's a cool thing just to drop off at a business or to have with you at Chamber of Commerce meetings. And it has all my pricing and information and everything that anyone would need to know. And this is a fantastic marketing piece. That is a 5x5 trifold, super awesome little piece of marketing material that you can use without any effort whatsoever because I've designed it all for you. All you do is add your pictures, put your logo on the back, and you're good to go. Okay, cool. Back to the fun stuff. I hope you guys all buy that so that I can put my 3 daughters through college. Okay, now let's move on. I will show you what it looks like with that other reflector added. Okay, Thank you, Carrie, for being amazing and just standing there quietly the entire time. Yeah, you're behaving yourself. This is the quietest you've been since you got here. Okay, cool. Okay, so we've got a really, really good look there. Daniel, go ahead and share the screen again with Capture One and show these images coming in. And I know it's a little hard to tell with sort of the webinar broadcast, but this has a full dynamic range. I have detail in every bit of the shadows. And now, if it was a perfect world, I would choose this background, and I did choose this background based on the items of clothing that Carrie brought today. But in a perfect world, I would probably have the room to add a second light, but this reflector is also, this second reflector, this 3x4 sweet light system, has added a little bit of edge light just on the back of her that's separating it. So now all of this is contained in a space that is about 10 feet by 10 feet, and I can actually even get in a little bit closer if I need to, because I'm shooting with a 70 to 200, but you could do quite a lot. I'll shoot at the widest to show you how wide you can get, and then I will zoom in and show you how close you can get. Carrie, face me straight on for a couple. Good. Tilt your head ever so slightly that way and bring your chin down a touch, and then lean into me like this a little bit. Chin down a little more. All right, so here you go. Boom. So even close inside 10 by 10 feet, you can get a really good headshot with room all the way around the subject. And those should be coming into Capture One. Daniel, make sure those are coming up. All right, and that's a super, super easy way to do it. Now let's change and show you another technique that I would use. And this is something that I would do that I think is, if I had a client that wanted something that was a little more like modern, I have a really cool device here. This is from Kupo, that's K-U-P-O, and it is a Kupo mini extender arm. And so basically what this does is, can we see this, Daniel? Let me turn this to the camera so everybody can see it. This is a Kupo mini extender arm. Just make sure we can see it. It should be good. There, let me move my camera out of the way. And what the Kupo extender arm does, it basically gives you a boom arm that's about 18 inches long, so that you can actually shoot in that clamshell or beauty configuration without bringing a gigantic boom that you need to counterweight. All I've got is a 10-pound weight on the leg here, and if you had a proper C-stand, you would just need a 10-pound weight to counterbalance this. Now, this is a pretty heavy modifier, and a lot of times I will just use a parabolic umbrella rather than this, but this is still pretty stable even with that on it. And so it gives you that 18 inches you need to be able to shoot straight without actually having the, I'm really nervous to adjust this stuff because I'm live, and if something falls over, I'll be so embarrassed. All right, there we go. Boom. And so, don't laugh at me, Carrie. And so if you have a client that wants something that's a little more modern looking, you can give them this sort of like really cool, glammy beauty lighting thing. And that Kupo arm gives you the ability to, just like having a boom without actually having to have one. And so since I moved that around and now my light is going to be directly on, I'm going to re-meter and adjust my settings. And it's just coming right under your chin, Carrie. Boom. 566. 569. Okay, so the reason I meter her forehead and I metered under her chin is because when you're doing beauty lighting, a lot of times people do it wrong and they make the forehead a gigantic hotspot. And so to meter that out, you just give it a little bit of a distance. And so I'm going to be at basically F8. And there we go. Let's take a look. See how I did. How'd I do, Daniel? Oh my gosh, I'm a champion. Look at me go. How easy was that? All right. So shift your weight to like one side or the other and let your hands go down. Yeah, that's going to be really cool. I find that straight on shooting tends to lend itself to a little more modern feel when it comes to a headshot rather than that turn 3/4, cut through one of the shoulders, old school bar association kind of deals. All right, and here we go. Let's do 2 of those. 1. Turn your head ever so slightly this way and then chin down a little bit. And then put your weight onto your heels and lean into me a little like that and chin down. Thank you. And maybe that, just like hook them. Yeah, fix those shoulders up. Thanks, Carrie. All right, 2, and we still on that Capture One, Daniel? Okay, cool. So check that out. That is an easy, well, hey, that's pretty cool. That's an easy one light headshot that's super easy to do in closed space, and that Kupo extender arm gives you the ability to use that beauty lighting, which is really cool, without having to bring out a giant boom arm and counterweight. So in the same space as doing a more traditional look, you can actually get that same kind of deal that you were getting before. Okay, cool. All right, any questions on that, Daniel? We got questions? We good on questions?
You want to give them a minute?
Yeah, okay, we'll give him a minute. Let's shoot on white. Let's see what it looks like on white. All right, I'm going to move the background around. Luckily, I happen to have a white wall right there. How about that? In the studio, I actually, when we moved in here, half the room is black and half the room is white, with the express purpose of not having to bring in white and black seamless paper a whole bunch.
So one other question: can you do the shot with a large rectangle reflector instead?
A large rectangle reflector instead? Sure. Yeah. Let's get rid of the arc light. I'm good with that. Now this is a silver reflector, so this is going to be a bit of a different look. But what's cool about this is this will go on pretty much any standard light stand. You don't have to have any special arm to be able to do this. And it works super easy, just like so. All right, let's see what that looks like. This is probably going to be a little bit hotter underneath. Boom. Here we go. See what we got. Boom. Okay, so with that unlit white, it gives you a pretty similar effect, actually. And then we can even raise it up a little bit more, flatten it, and get it closer, the more intense that you want it to be. And if you use, and I shoot on a white background unlit a lot, that's most of what I do when I'm shooting volume, because if I don't have space, it's really hard to do a proper high key, or very often the client hasn't even decided what color background they want yet. And so I shoot unlit white a lot, knowing that I'm going to extract it later. And unlit white just turns out to be a really nice sort of like middle gray, like you can see. Can you go ahead and share the capture one on there so they can see that one, Daniel? All right. Boom. Just like so. All right, let's see what that looks like. Boom. All right, so we brought it a little closer. It's a little more lit from underneath. It's a little more that really pretty, like, glamour style lighting, and this works really, really well. Again, we are using just white, which you could use seamless paper, a white pop-up background, a white wall, and we're getting a really cool, pretty headshot with this light, just using 180-200 and a Kupo extender arm to be able to get that out to the center. That worked pretty well. All right, so let's do this. Carrie, I want to have you back up to that wall, and let's move like we have even less space. And you can actually give yourself kind of a cool shadow look on this one. All right, boom. I'm going to guess that our exposure is going to be roughly the same. And I will very often, especially when I'm shooting like professional women, I know that it's very common to take a really high angle to make people look smaller. But I also think it makes them look like little kids. And so I'm not trying to necessarily, yes, you want them to have a good, strong jawline, and you don't want a double chin. Not that you're going to have that problem with someone like Carrie, but I don't want to make people look small. Shooting down on someone takes away a lot of their power. So I will typically, unless there's some real reason why I can't, I will shoot just almost a little bit lower than eye angle sometimes, or sometimes like right at the same level as the face. So let's see what we got and take a look at it. Daniel, you are running things really, really nicely. I just got to be honest with you. And what's cool about backing all the way up to that white wall is you get the wall a little bit closer. Share that capture one screen, Daniel, if you would. And you're going to get a little closer to white by leaning right on it. And you're also going to get a bounce back off of the wall that can sometimes wrap around the face and give you a really pretty kind of edge light, just highlighting the jawline there, which we like a lot. Okay, turn this way a little bit, Carrie, for me. Perfect. Until your head that way, chin down. And let's rock a couple of these out. And we're just going to actually flip a little hair off your shoulder out to the back. Thank you very much. All right, there we go. And let's hit it. Let's do 3. 1. Chin down a little, please. All right, take a breath. Loose those shoulders. Perfect. And action. Very cool. I dig it. All right, now I want you to turn the other way slightly this way. Point your left foot at me. Put your weight onto your right foot. Cool. There you go. And turn your head a little bit that way. Perfect. All right, let's do that. 2. A little bit more this way, please. Thanks. Chin down an inch. Bam. And there we go. Okay. So pretty easy stuff to do with one light. That's like 3 different configurations. I think that's pretty cool. Thanks for the idea to do it with the silver reflector underneath. So if you're not experienced using reflectors underneath, always go with the white reflector. What I see a lot is people put something silver underneath, and then when you get a catch light on the bottom, really hard catch light, and when that catch light on the bottom is brighter than the catch light on the top, I think it means you've got like what I call campfire lighting, which means that it's like lit from underneath, like you're telling ghost stories. And I don't think that's super flattering to anybody. And so in these situations, you got to be really careful not to overdo it. You don't want more. It is possible, depending on how you have your light configured with your reflector, to have more light coming up from the bottom than is coming from the top because of the way you position that reflector. So just be careful not to do that. Okay, cool. We got any more questions, Daniel?
Esther says that I have a very hard time getting top catch like hooded eyes. The reflector is the only way I can catch eyes. How do you handle this?
Well, there's a couple of things that are going to happen. Of course, everybody's face is shaped a little bit differently. You have people with faces that are a little flatter, where the eyes are closer, the ocular cavity isn't as deep, and some people like me that have a forehead like a tectonic plate, and that's hard to light. But what we're talking about isn't insurmountable. The only way to deal with that isn't putting a too bright reflector underneath their face. A lot of times it has to do with just the height of the light and lowering it until it gets there. And sometimes that doesn't give you the shadows, the perfect sort of lighting pattern that you want. But really, if the eyes aren't lit, the person probably isn't going to like the photograph that much. And so depending on the shape of the face, that's probably the thing that causes me to have to raise and lower my light the most, is going to be when someone has a big-ass Cro-Magnon shelf like me. And then I have to lower that light until you get it in there. And so, yes, you can augment that and throw in a little more fill underneath, but you don't want the only catch light to be in the bottom of the eyes, because that looks creepy. And believe me, I shoot a lot of people, and so I know that it's not always as simple as that. There are people who have all kinds of different things going on that are tough to frickin' look at, you know. But there are all kinds of things that are tough to deal with as far as getting lighting in there. Ultimately, stuff that works will only work 90% of the time. There's nothing that works on everybody. And some people are just hard to photograph due to whatever. They might have some kind of a disability. They might have some kind of affliction. They might have some kind of like abnormality in the way that they developed. And we deal with that stuff all the time. You just do your best and you photograph it, and you try to flatter every single person in front of you the best you can. But if you're getting hooded eyes, then lower your light. That's sort of the main thing that I do. That bottom reflector will help, but the height of the light is really going to save you. And sometimes even bringing it a little more around to the front.
Can we get the name of the silver reflector again?
That is a Sweet Light Systems 3x4 reflector. That is actually, gosh, I think that's like a $400 kit. So that's kind of pricey. But if you also, you can get that, and I highly recommend it. I've had mine for 10 years and it's still kicking. But that, I believe you can also from Adorama get a glow reflector kit that's very, very similar to that, that has like the metal posts. And the reason I like it is because it rolls up to like this big and this thin, and it will pretty much go in any bag, and it only takes a few seconds to break down and set up. So I absolutely love it. And so you can get those from Adorama as well. Okay, y'all, thank you so much for watching. Tell your friends, and thanks to Daniel for going through this with me. Thank you to Carrie for being our amazing model. And you guys, thanks very much for tuning in. And sign up on the way out. You can click a button and sign up for all the webinars. We do this about every 6 weeks or so. And so if you have a suggestion on a topic, make sure you do that on the way. If you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm at Hughes Fioretti or at Gary Hughes Official. Those are my two Instagram accounts. And follow my Facebook page. Just look for Gary Hughes, and I have a public figure page on there that you can follow. Also, I would love to interact with you guys there. Okay, that's it. Daniel, say goodnight. It's the weekend. What are you still doing here?